Good evening, everybody. How are you? Happy Wednesday. Right, I'm just going to get my... Oh. I'm going to have to sort the situation out. There we go. So say hi if you're coming on for day one. There we go. There we go. Right. Day one. Okay. Hi. Say hi. Hey, Dawn. How are you, Dawn? I saw your post. You've had a lovely meal. You're sat chilling out, ready to absorb, which I'm excited about. Say hi. Hey, Suzanne. I'm going to say hi to everybody, and then I'm going to crack on because A, there's lots of content to get through. B, when I see, because they're not at the same place, it distracts me slightly. And I noticed in my last live that I started talking about something and then lost my point and didn't go back to it. So I need to stop doing that. Hey, Pip. So tonight is day one. So I just want to welcome you. So hello, good evening. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So this is what's going to happen. So tonight is day one. And I'm going to tell you a little bit, hey Karen, a little bit about the context for the next 2 days. So we've got tonight and then tomorrow night, which is session 2, which we're working on the next 2 pieces. So we're going to be working on 2 pieces tonight and 2 pieces tomorrow. That will be in my private group, which is the Ever Evolving Woman. And the link for that is on the personal page. There's a big square with the thing and the link. You need to, hey Zoe, hey Debbie, Emma, Nikki. You need to request to join that group. And I cannot say this clearly enough. You must answer the questions in order to be entered to the group. There is 2 very simple questions that could require only 1-word answers. I like it if you give more, but you must answer the questions. It's just a little rule I've got before you come in the group. I've got 10 people sat in the group waiting to come in, and they've just answered the questions. So if that's you, then please go in and re-ask and just answer the questions, then I can add you. The reason I have those is because I want to know why you're here. Like, I only want people in that group who want to be in there. So so I want to know why, and I want to know why you're in there, whether it's to do with your life, love, business, like what's driving you to be part of the Ever Evolving Woman. And answering 2 questions to start that journey is a very simple thing to do. So if you're gonna, hey Vicky, can't stay on because of mom, I'll catch you in the morning. No worries, Emma, sending you lots of love and lots of love to your mom. Okay, so now everybody knows what's happening. I will crack on. So if you do comment and I don't respond to it, I'm just going to get through the content, and then I will scroll through the comments and answer anything that comes up. Hey Jenny, because I want to really get into it. You know, this is not a normal live. This is me actually talking about stuff that I want you to get some value from. So I don't want to get distracted. I want to just be able to crack on. So I have made notes as well. So if you see me looking down, that's why, because I don't want to miss anything out. Although it's very confusing because I've got like this bit first, then that bit. So first of all, I want to start this masterclass by saying why. I want you to understand why I think personal development is so important. And there is a process that I use. It was something that I used when I was training, and that I was taught when I was training. And it's called the SCORE process. And if you're a private client of mine, you will have probably been through this, some very recently. But the favorite part of that process, I'll not go into the full thing, but the favorite part for me of that process is when I get you to get my clients to imagine going to the end of their life, and they're sort of sat in their twilight years, and they're looking back at the situation that they're in now. So whatever the client situation is. And I asked them to give themselves some advice. It's like a hindsight process. And it's one of my favorite things to do because it shows somebody how they can use their mental capacity to calm themselves, to feel differently, literally like that. So we get so caught up in the day-to-day grind and hi Sam, hey Mel. we get really caught in the day-to-day grind of life and the 4 elements that we're going to talk about over this next 2 days are what I see as absolutely core, the 4 quadrants of being a woman. And the importance of this is absolutely highlighted beautifully in this poem. Now, this poem, it was really weird actually, because when I was preparing this masterclass, what I tend to do sometimes is I'll just put YouTube on, follow, put somebody on that I love and just trust that I'll hear the thing that I need to hear and that will inspire me or give me some insight or whatever. And I was listening to somebody's video, Lisa Nichols' video, and she mentioned this poem. And all she said was the title. And she didn't say what it was. She was just like, she called it what it is. And I was just like, oh, I remember that. I think that's either a book or a poem that I've read. So I went to look for it, and here was the poem. So I'm actually going to read it to you, because what I do is so this goes well for us when we get to that stage. So I'm going to read it to you. It's called The Dash, and it's by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what that little line was worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left, and that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, you'll always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and to show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and smile, and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? I mean, come on. I absolutely love it. Yes, Emma, I knew you'd know it. So I am going to be talking about this masterclass is to give you an example of what it's like to be in my world. It's an example of the sort of content that I talk about. And if it's something that interests you, fantastic. If it's not, fantastic. But my job as a coach, and I refer to myself, somebody says, what do you do? I said, well, I'm a women's transformation coach. And when I really dug into that, and I was like, what does that actually mean? Like, I need to be able to describe that. And through my own journey, through my own, sounds a bit X Factor, doesn't it? Through my own discovery of how I am at my happiest, there are 4 quadrants to being a woman. There are 4 elements that I address when working with a client. And they're the 4 elements that I have to keep aware of, keep working on, and address pretty much daily in order for me to be functioning in the happiest version that I can possibly be. And the 4 areas are mind. What's our mindset? Our emotions. How do we feel? How do we process what we feel? How do we communicate what we feel? Our spirit and our energy. How do we show up? What do we bring to a situation? And our body. How are we connected to our sensuality, to our desire as a woman? It's very powerful. So there are 4 elements, 4 quadrants to a woman. Obviously, we are very complex creatures. And obviously, there are many, many layers to everybody, and we're all unique. But for me, what I've learned is that if I have these 4 areas rocking, then life seems to go pretty well. What I've also noticed on the flip side is that if I am not paying attention to one of those areas, for sure, within a very short space of time, it has a knock-on effect in other areas. And I would use weight and food as a perfect example of that. So if I'm not taking care of my body, then my mind starts to slip. Then I start to feel not as good, and therefore my energy is depleted. So these things are all interlinked. And so hey Sarah, so what we need to understand is, and what I want to talk about tonight and tomorrow, is just some elements, some tasters of some things, some thoughts, some stuff you can take away to think about when it comes to these 4 areas. And in the program, obviously my All Woman program, which launches next week, we're going to go a deep dive into these 4 areas, because what I want to do, like what I'm really passionate about, is non-passive personal development. This isn't just about hearing me speak and going, oh yes, I understand. Oh yeah, that felt good. And having a little aha moment. That's all well and good, and that's brilliant. But we have to do something. We can't just read a book. And I know this because I've done it. Like, I used to do this. I used to read the book and go, wow, mind blown, that was amazing. And then I would do nothing, and therefore nothing would change. So we have to dream, implement, action. So what I want to do in this program, and what I want to help you, give you some action points just in this masterclass, so you've got something to take away if the program is not right for you, or it's just not the right time, or it's just not your thing. I still want you to be able to take away some pointers that you think, okay, this is what I need to be doing, thinking about, becoming aware of. So what's also interesting is that the last 2 parts, the spiritual sort of energy side of things, the manifestation side of things, and the body and sensuality and connection to self and self-love section, are the two quadrants that are the most neglected. Because we talk about our mindset all the time. Like most of you that are watching this live, if you're interested in personal development, we've heard the word mindset 1,000,000 times. And you know about emotions, like we've talked about it, that, especially nowadays, people talking about mental health much more, which is fantastic. But understanding emotional mastery is, for me, emotional intelligence is more. There's a book, one of the first personal development books I read was called Why Emotional Intelligence is More Important Than IQ. Because how we navigate, hey Kerry, how we navigate our emotions in any situation, with our partners, with our children, with our bosses, with our co-workers, with our business partners, whatever. However, how we manage our emotions is absolutely key to our success, to how we feel, to our ability to move forward. And so tonight I want to touch on mind. That's the first thing we want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about mind, give you some pointers on that. Then we're going to talk about emotions. And then tomorrow night we'll deal with the other 2. So what is your mind? So when we talk about mindset, like what does that actually mean? So what our mind's job is it makes us move, it takes us through our day. It means we can brush our teeth and get dressed without really thinking about it. We can multitask doing physical things and thinking. Have you ever had that situation where you've driven somewhere and not remembered how you got there? Yeah, we all have. It's your filing cabinet. It holds all your memory. And obviously I'm NLP and timeline therapy, so that these are your unconscious mind and your conscious mind, 2 very different things. And you've heard me say this before, if you follow my stuff, like 95% of what we do is unconscious. And if you imagine your mind as a Rolodex, that's a bit of an 80s thing, like a filing cabinet is a more global term, a filing cabinet for every single experience and thing that's ever happened. And we consciously might not remember everything, but it's back in there. And so it also molds our view of the world. It keeps us safe. So our fear, everything that we feel that stops us moving forward, is because our mind's job is to keep us safe. It's not to make us happy. It's not to make us successful. It's just to keep us safe and to conserve energy. That's why your neural pathways in your head are well worn. And so there's something called neuroplasticity, which allows your brain to change, but that takes conscious effort. It takes moving the way we think and feel. And that at first feels really uncomfortable. So if you ever tried to break a habit, if you ever tried to move in a new direction, your brain's job is literally to try and stop you doing that, because the path you are treading is an untrodden path. It's not what you normally do. And your brain's job is to say, conserve energy, let's keep it safe. Especially if the road you are trying to tread is you have relevant experience that this didn't go well before. That's where phobias come from. It's where any form of fear comes from, is that your memory goes, hang on a minute, we did something like this before and you got scared, or you got upset, or you were hurt, or emotionally or physically. Let's not do this again. That's its job. So it molds our view of the world based on all these experiences. We look through our viewpoint, and our viewpoint is as unique as a fingerprint to everybody else's, because our viewpoint is simply how we view the world based on our own personal experiences, and also our upbringing, our surroundings, and the influence, social, professional, our parents, what was modeled to us. All that is made up, and it predicts our view. But the downside sounds like the downside. The downsides to that is that if you are somebody who cares about your dash, and if you're watching this, I'm assuming that's you, there are loads of people who don't care about, not that they don't care about their dash, but they aren't even aware that they have the ability to move through fear, to walk with it, to feel the fear and do it anyway, to quote the book. There are people who just go, this is how I feel, this is what I think about this, therefore I can't do it. So if you've ever heard yourself say, or anybody else say, I can't do that, that's not me, I could never do that, the fact of that is absolute rubbish. That the passion and the conviction in which they say it is the strength of the experience that they had. But the feelings that this generate are doubt, worry, fear, blame, criticism, judgment. So these are all examples of our mind not working for us. But if it's true that we have the option to change those things, is to turn fear into courage, is to change how we think about any given situation, it frees up our path. Because I have spoken to, I've been working for myself now since 2012, well, 2011, 2012. And the main conversation I have, the reason that I ended up doing this is because I wanted to help people push through fear. And that's not because, well, just one of the things, it's not because, it's because I know it's possible. And not just because from my own experience, but seeing the countless other, all the evidence in the world. But when it's other people's evidence, we still feel fearful. What we need is our own evidence. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So there is a book that changed my life. There's been many books that have changed my life. And I say that, and it sounds a bit dramatic, but I genuinely mean it. Like, there's quotes that have changed, that have given me a paradigm shift in my thinking and my feeling. You all know, those who know me well, know the Marianne Williamson quote, the darkness one is my absolute favorite. But this book, hang on. Oh, excuse me. So this book, when I read it, it's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think I pronounced that right. Hi, Sophie. The Four Agreements has molded me. And one of these actually was the catalyst to me changing my business. I read this, I had this biggest aha I'd ever had, and I realized that I am here for the wrong reasons. And it shifted me from a very, very good income, from a successful business, to completely, pretty much walk away from it and start afresh. It blew my mind. So that's the power of personal development, is the power of actually hearing something that sinks so deeply that it shifts everything. That's powerful. And that's why, me putting programs together and me doing lives all the time is to help people, even if it's one person, go, oh my God, Yes, like that, what you just said there, and it shifts you, and it gives you a new perspective, and it opens your mind. So the 4 agreements, I want to read them out to you because they have shaped. I want to read them to you so they can land for you. And obviously there's a full book, but I just want to read you the 4 agreements and sort of the little synopsis of each one. So the first one is be impeccable with your word. So speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using your words to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. So when you think about that, it's so simple. Like these 4 agreements, if we lived by them, hey Victoria, if we lived by them, life on this planet would change. And I try to. My intention is to live in alignment with these, and these all come down to what's going on in here. So being impeccable with your word just means you don't talk badly to yourself, and that's something I'm going to talk a little bit more about tomorrow. You don't use your own words against you. You don't gossip about other people. That's a hard one. Like, I'm not going to lie, like that's a hard, and it's never harmful, but everybody, that's how, especially with women, you know, that's how we bond. Like that's one of the main things that women use to bond is to talk amongst themselves about themselves or others, or you know, it's not pleasant, but it's, you know, a lot of people do it. Don't take anything personally. Now this was massive for me. So nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. So I realized, one of my big shifts was I realized that, and what that meant when you go a bit more into detail with it, it meant, so I don't take anything personally that's good. I mean, that's bad, because I know it's all about them, not about me. But also good stuff. And what that meant was, it was like, I was doing a lot for outside gratification. I was successful because I really craved the attention. I craved the praise. I loved making people proud. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when it's your driver, and what I noticed is that once that started to go, I started to feel less worthy. So when I realized that I was relying on outside validation to make me feel worthy, something had to change. And when it did, everything changed, literally my life. Don't make assumptions. Huge one. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Imagine if we never assumed anything. Imagine if you never said, well, I'm sure they were thinking this, or I'm sure that was their intention. Imagine if we just didn't assume anything. It would be life-changing. And assumptions are made by the mind. Assumptions are made based on, well, and we pull out the evidence. We go, well, the last time you did this is what happened. So I'm going to assume that the same thing is going to happen again, without any consideration about what that person's feeling or thinking, what they're personally going through. And then the other person makes assumptions too. That one thing is really difficult. But if you just said to yourself, do you know what? I'm not going to assume anything. I'm going to ask. Life-changing. And always do your best. Your best changes from moment to moment. Your best is different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Simply doing your best under any circumstances, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. Now, that book is very short. It's very, very slim. And I literally would recommend it to anybody. It's one of Oprah's favorite books too, because actually life is very simple. Everything I'm talking about is actually simple. Doesn't make it easy, but it is very simple. So one of the areas that I hear most about and I get asked most about is negative thoughts. Like, how do I not think negative thoughts? And the fact of the matter is that that's impossible. Like, everybody thinks negative thoughts. Everybody. And so and no matter who you are, and no matter how good you think somebody's got it, or no matter how famous or how rich or how successful somebody is, they will always have negative thoughts. I always say negative thoughts are a bit like a shadow. Like, they're always there. Sometimes you can't see them as well, but they're always there. So it's not about getting rid of negative thoughts. For me, it's about understanding that they're always going to be there. And for me, it's like, I see it, I'm quite a visual person, I see it as sort of a little guidance tool that is giving me their opinion that I don't have to listen to. So a negative thought will pop into my head, or if a negative thought pops into your head, your job is to understand that it's not real. But what happens is that if we don't nip it in the bud, if we don't even recognize that this is just our brain doing its job of keeping us safe, we just accept it. And we just go, oh no, I can't do that. I'm rubbish at that. I'm too stupid. I'm too thick. I'm too thin. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not anything enough. And so we're all going to have them, but we don't have to live there. Like, we don't have to climb into it. And just the awareness of that is the start of how you manage negative thoughts. The thing is here, the more we prove to ourselves that we can do it, the more we prove to ourselves that we can do it. So we don't have to have the validation from somebody else. We're not waiting for anybody else to say it. The more we prove to ourselves that we can do what we say we're going to do, the more evidence we gain. So the more you do that, so the reason that I manage negativity really, really well from my own brain is because I've been attempting, sometimes more successfully than others, to push through that and do it anyway long enough to know that this will pass. This doubt will pass. You know, launching a new program, it can feel really vulnerable. It's part of who I am. It's me sharing what I've learned with the world and with the people that are listening. That's quite a vulnerable thing. I could have thrown the towel in at least 5 times this week, but my intention is it's not about me, because I'm not going to allow myself to get in my way of maybe just 1 or 2 people hearing something and thinking, yeah, that makes sense, that helps, because my intention is to be of service. Hey, Emily. Nice to see you, honey. So the more we prove to ourselves, the more evidence we get. And if we don't learn to just do it anyway, we don't gain the relevant supportive information. It literally is, and I was talking to a client about this today, and sometimes when we have a vision, so I've always had a feeling that one day I would do something that I would feel really special doing. Like I always had this feeling. When I was a kid, I thought I'd be a singer and an actress and all the things. So I always had this feeling. But then as I went through life and it didn't happen and it didn't happen and it didn't happen, I started to doubt me. I started to go, well, obviously, and I started to implode on myself. I'm sure you've had some, in your time period so far on the planet, you've had, similar thoughts. But when you have a vision, so if you are somebody who cares about your dash, if you are somebody who by the time you've left the planet and you've transitioned to wherever you go, that you have left a legacy, that there is something that somebody will read your eulogy and be proud to be stood there to have known you, that you left an impact, that you made a difference in people's lives, and that might just be your family. It might just be, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be all singing or dancing. But if you're somebody who cares about that, then you will learn to push through. But it feels to me like stood on the edge of a cliff, like metaphorically, this is how it feels for me. So see if you can relate. So you can see everything that you desire on the other side of a ravine. And it's the embodiment of who you are. She's more confident, she's grounded, she's calm, she's assured, she does what she loves. She's a great friend, she's a great wife, partner, a great sister, mother, whatever, a great parent, everything. She has everything that she desires over there, and you can see it and you know it's you. And then there's this ravine. And when you have to throw yourself into something that scares you, it feels like you're about to jump off a cliff. That's how it feels to me. And I've had this with clients as well who've explained it in the same way. They said it's like leap. It's like I have to leap and trust. And trust is something we're going to talk about a lot more tomorrow. But hi Kelly, there's this element of, you have to leap with the trust and the knowledge that you will be caught by life. And so the visual that I always use is when I get that feeling, I close my eyes and I imagine a cable car. And this cable car is decked out beautifully. It smells good. It's got really lovely, soft things in it. The boy is a marker in there. And they just go, come on, and just step in. And it literally, your mind is so powerful that you can tell it to calm yourself down. Anxiety, feelings of worry and stress and doubt are created by the thoughts you are having. It is as simple as that. So, and sometimes those feelings can be so overwhelming if we believe them to be true. But once we practice this, I have had a lot of people come through my life who, through the power of personal development, just understanding themselves better, their mind and their emotions, have eased their anxiety massively. I've had clients that using NLP and timeline therapy have eased their anxiety massively, because anxiety is your body responding to what your mind is thinking. So worry, anxiousness, tightness of chest is your body going into its physical response to what you're thinking, feeling, and saying. So if you're talking about it all the time, if you're thinking about it all the time, you are exasperating the problem that's already there. So just awareness around and having tools, like this is what I'm talking about. This isn't, I'll just think my way out of it. It's like you can visualize yourself out of it. When NLP and a hypnotherapist talk to people who've frightened of flying, the most common thing they do is that they get them to project once the flight is over. They get them to see 15, 20 minutes after the plane has landed and they're at their destination. How are you going to feel? And so the mind goes from, I'm going to crash on a plane, to I'm laid on a sun lounger. I've got a pina colada in my hand, like everything's sweet. I've got some cucumbers on my eyes. They get them to think into that place, and it automatically calms the body down. So try it next time you feel a little bit anxious. But yeah, my cable car is a really good thing to do. So we have to, if we're the kind of people that care about our dash, we have to use our brain not only to dream, we have to set an intention of how we want to show up. Like, what is my end goal here? Who do I want to be in this situation? And then we have to do it. And yes, it's scary, but there is all the thinking in the world, all the reading in the world, all the books in the world. I've just said reading and books, you know what I mean? All the programs, even everything in the world is not going to work unless you actually do something. So what I like to do is to give actionable steps, so you can actually start to move in a direction in a really supportive environment. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So some little top tips about sort of how to manage your mind and your negative thoughts is, number one, hear them, don't live there. Just hear it, recognize it as not truth, and just say, thank you for your input. So I actually say out loud sometimes, thanks for your input, I'm good. I'm a big girl, I can handle it. And the more you start to affirm that you are in control of this situation, not the random thoughts that are coming into your mind, you start to feel more confident in your ability to do that. The next thing to do is to stay in action, is to, like, if you're doing something and that fear kicks in and that negative mindset kicks in, you just got to go, it's almost like, I'll just keep going, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep going, because then it dissipates, because you're like, I'm still doing it, even though this is here. It's not paralyzing me anymore, because I have evidence that I can still walk. I can still move in the direction of my dreams, or move in the direction of what I want to achieve, even though it's scary. Also, one thing I've learned is to recognize your journey, like recognize how far you have come. My coach, Melanie, talks about personal development as the mountain with no peak. because every time you set something above you, there's clouds, and then you break through that thing, and then you're like, oh, now what? Like, where do I move to now? So it's like a never-ending climb. But that climb gets very, very long if all you're doing is focusing on the top. So for me, one of the most life-changing things, and I would encourage you to do it, is to recognize, look at how far you've come. Wherever you are, the fact that you're even sat, spending your Thursday evening listening to me says that you are doing something about how you think and feel. You are doing something about it. And whether or not that at the moment that's just passive, whether or not you're just listening and absorbing it, or whether or not you're ready to take the next step and actually do the work, doesn't matter. You're still here. And so you have to recognize, a year ago, I would have rolling my eyes at this mad woman on the internet. Like, I would have just rolled my eyes and said, what's she talking about? Look how far I've come. Look at the result of how I feel. Look at how the result of, I had a client say to me today, people are starting to notice. They're starting to say to me, I love this new you. Like, that makes my heart sing. I love this new you. Like, who is this? Because you energetically, people feel it. And there's nothing better than that, because you realize that actually we get to live exactly whatever life we choose. We get to think and feel exactly how we choose, because we are in control. But if we're not aware of it, if we just believe everything that our mind tells us, then we get lost. Last one is to celebrate. Is when you do something, like even as small as, say that you really lack confidence and you go into a coffee shop and sit down and have a coffee on your own. Celebrate it. If you decide to write a post on Facebook that's a bit vulnerable and that you want to share something and you're frightened to do it and you do it, you celebrate it. It doesn't have to be a big shebang, but the more you celebrate it, you are affirming to yourself that you did it. Because what I see a lot of people do is that they are the first to notice the negative. They are the first to notice what went wrong. And every single person on this live now will identify when they've done something brave, or they've done something courageous, or they've been put in maybe it was to do a speech at a wedding, or to stand up at work and present something, or anything that makes them feel uncomfortable or scared. They will always focus on the tiny bit that went wrong and not the rest of it that went right. So what we have to start doing is, like, this, it doesn't happen by accident. This is when the people say you've got to do the work. That's what the work is. It's like, right, I did that right. I'm going to recognize it. I'm going to praise myself for it. I'm going to give myself some credit. I'm going to give myself a bloody high five and a pat on the back, because I deserve it. And it's a really good thing to write it down. This is what I did. This is how it felt. I'm really proud of myself. So we have to actually do the thing. We have to praise. We have to, instead of always being the first person to beat ourselves up. Because the thing is that negative self-talk, negative mindset, negative thoughts are you just affirming to yourself something that isn't true. So you might as well affirm the other way. Because I have a lot of people that say to me, oh, in the past, I've had a few people say, affirmations don't work. And I'm like, well, you've been affirming to yourself how shit you are for the last 25 years, and that worked. You've been doing this for 5 minutes. You work it out. If the way we speak to ourselves, we're so much more comfortable with speaking to ourselves and believing the negative stuff that goes in our head, thus making us feel bad, yet we won't put the effort in to make ourselves feel better by affirming to ourselves and saying positive things and celebrating when we do something great. I thought that was that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about mindset, and obviously in the program we go a lot deeper. We look at all the things. We're looking at all the things, and it's tools and actionable steps of how to change our mindset, how to think differently, period. Next, we're going to talk about emotions and emotional mastery. So a lot of people feel bad about themselves a lot of the time. They don't have any resilience when something goes wrong. Like my 13-year-old son had a full meltdown earlier because his PlayStation wasn't updating, like full meltdown. I love you when you watch this back if you ever do. They feel like you don't understand other people. Like people react and you don't get why they react in a certain way. You don't understand yourself. You don't understand why that upset me so much. I don't understand why that makes me so angry. Like you'll all know, especially if you've got partners, there are buttons that they can press, and all it takes is a look, a word, even a gesture, and you go from 0 to hero, but not a hero. The red mist descends. Like I have been there. I used to be that person. Now I'm not, because I've done the work. But emotional mastery, I mean, that's the making or breaking of relationships. Lack of communication and not being able to handle and process emotion well is, everybody should be taught that, because it would save a lot of relationships. You're up and down all day because you are responsive and reactive to those around you. You don't understand that. I'm not saying you personally, but this is how a lot of people are. And this is how I used to be. Like I used to be responsive. So if somebody was behaving if somebody was angry, it would make me angry. If someone was sad, I would feel sad. Hey, girl. We are like a sponge sucking up the emotion from other people without any knowledge or any boundary or any, like my friend used to call it a bell jar, like nothing around us to, no strength to protect us from just being sucked into the emotion of everybody else. You know, there's a lot of that going around at the moment. You know, we're in a really weird situation, and I see a lot of people not having the emotional strength to say, hang on a minute, how do I want to feel about this? They just go, oh yeah, and get sucked into how other people are feeling, and then take that on as their emotion. It's like, hang on a minute, do you even believe that? Like, do you even feel that? Or is it just how you've been influenced by somebody else? Everything is situational. Like, well, I was in a good mood till you turned up. Like, I was in a good mood till you walked in with your bad mood. This is a personal one, by the way. That's how, you know, that's something I used to say. Oh, I was fine until you came in. You know, that's not on them, that's on us. So some tips around, I mean, the emotional piece is so intense. It's so deep, and there's so many levels to it. But I just want to, in the space of this, because I don't want to be talking for more than an hour, because I want to keep it, you know, short and sweet for you, is what is, you know, emotional mastery is just really, first of all, we have to understand we have to have empathy, compassion, and understanding for other people. If you're the kind of person who's very me, and I'm sure there's nobody on this live that is, but if you're the type of person that's like me, how I feel, how I think, it's all about you, then you've got no perspective. Like really starting to understand the emotions of other people, respecting their responses. You don't have to climb into it. You don't have to agree with it. But especially the people that you love, like, how are they feeling? Like, what's made them feel that way? Something must be going on. Like, I've got a saying that I say all the time, and it's very, very real for me. It's like, there's no truth in the moment. So if my kids are kicking off, or if Mark's in a bad mood, or something's happened, I don't take the moment as the truth, because they are simply expressing some form of negative emotion. It may be stress, it may be anger, it may be disappointment, it may be resentment, it may be something. Something is being expressed, and it's my choice whether I climb into that and make it mean that it's about me, or whether I just let it be and try and understand. Because once you can have a broader understanding and a broader empathy for the complex range of emotions that every single human feels, then it gives us perspective for ourselves. So in order to understand ourselves, we first have to understand other people. The next thing is, know that you're in charge. Like emotional intelligence is knowing that you drive the bus. Like the emotions are there, and all emotions should be felt. Nothing should be swallowed or repressed, because, you know, we wouldn't have a job if everyone could do this. People wouldn't need people like me, Because, and I speak to so many people who have just can't stay up as parents. I'm going to catch up in the morning. No worries, girl. Oh, see you soon. You know, we are in charge. Like, we have to learn to feel through. Like, emotion is emotion. There is the word motion is in it. Emotions are meant to pass through us. None of them are bad. They are just all different. And if we can stop resisting and being frightened of our real emotions, and also being frightened of expressing them, you know, and as a woman that can be, you know, I was always a very emotional person. I was, and I was called, oh, she's so emotional. And that not necessarily being a good thing. Like, I'm glad I'm an emotional person because I am able to process things quicker because I let it out. Like, if I need a good cry, I'm going to have a good cry. If I'm angry, I'm going to go and hit a pillow or throw it across the room, or I'm going to have a scream. Like, getting it out is paramount. So it's something we want to talk a lot more about, obviously, in the program, and how to do that in a sort of beautiful way, that it makes our processing of stuff and allowing us to just bloody feel like it's okay. You shouldn't be frightened of your sadness. You shouldn't be frightened to grieve. You shouldn't feel like, oh, I should be over this by now. I should be through it by now. Everybody takes their own sweet time in order to process something. But as long as we have an understanding of our emotions, we can use that to grow stronger and to gain more wisdom and experience. Confidence with emotions. Like, one of my favorite sayings is, well, Marie Forleo says it like this: everything is figure outable. And Brendan Burchard says, you know, I'm just going to trust that I'll figure it out. Like, when we go into stressful situations or situations that make us feel vulnerable or, you know, upset or emotional, it's just that I'm going to be okay. And when we build our confidence into, I'm going to be okay, like, no matter what, like, I know no matter what, I'm going to be okay, that I have the wherewithal. Hi. I'm going to say your name wrong, Janaya. Janaya? Yeah. Hi. I trust I'm going to be okay. But if we fall apart at the smallest thing, if we say things like, I can't, hey, Emma, if we say things like, I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. You can. And things for some people get really bad. There are people going through some horrific things at the moment, some people going through horrendous times. And I always look to those people for inspiration. In fact, Emma, who has just popped on, sister, is currently raising money. I posted a post earlier on about donating to raise this money for her treatment. She's got a really rare form of cancer. You know, she is one of the most inspirational women. We're the same age. We've got two beautiful sons. I am obsessed with how incredibly strong she is and how amazing she is. And whenever I'm having a down moment, whenever I am thinking or feeling scared, I mean, what have I got to be scared about? You know, so take inspiration. Like, when you understand other people and you see and witness how people manage their emotions, raw emotion, like allowing themselves to be scared, allowing themselves to be upset, that for me is being who you are. And too many of us push that away and try and put a front on and pretend that everything's okay when it's not. And it just doesn't work. Like, as a strategy for dealing with emotion, it just doesn't work. So if we can learn to process, to feel, to understand, to have empathy for ourselves and others, then suddenly life gets definitely more, there's more depth to it. There's just more depth when we really allow ourselves to feel and not pretend everything's all right because we don't want to appear like we're anything less than perfect to anybody else, which is the biggest load of shit ever, isn't it? Okay, I'll get off that high horse now. The next thing I want to say is give yourself space. Like, you've heard me say it before, like, there's no truth in the moment. If I feel emotional, if Mark says something to trigger me, or he'll say something that, say he's tired and he's mardy and he says something that annoys me, my old immediate reaction would be to react to it in the moment. I would take it as truth. I would say, you're doing that to make me feel like this, and I'm going to respond to this with my energy and my mood and my words, and then it would escalate into something. Now, I have learned by practicing to give myself space. If the kids are kicking off, if one of them's flaring up and I can't, I'll go, do you know what? I'm just going to take myself away. I'll be back. And I take myself away and I breathe it out. Literally, this is what I do. I take a deep breath until my anger subsides, because I don't want to take my anger out on the other person. I want to feel my anger. I can feel it. I don't need anybody else to feel it. I can sit or stand or go and walk it off. I can process it myself. I can allow myself to feel it without throwing it in somebody's face. And that has been a game changer in my relationship. So the point of this program, the point of the All Woman program, is that the 4 quadrants that I have identified, that if you are in alignment with, aware of, and working on, and keeping, them flowing, is when because then you affect your relationship, you affect your business, you affect your health and your well-being. It comes from an internal thing, because you are a balanced, grounded, emotionally intelligent woman with an incredible mindset. It's not, you don't have to be Freud to work out that you are going to have a better path through life if that's who you are, if that's who you commit to being. And you don't have to. You don't have to. But what I see a lot is that people get to a certain point in their growth and they stop. And then life stays the same because their mind can't open to different thoughts. They keep repeating the same mantra, the same negative talk, the same negative thoughts, the same negative emotions that they repress and then hide. And it's just this never-ending circle of shit. And it ends up not being very happy with your dash. God, we're only here. We're only here for this short dash of time. And I don't want anything to stand in anything that I am thinking that isn't true, anything that I'm feeling that is I'm not processing. I don't want that to be the reason that I didn't live full out, that I didn't play full out. And I don't want it to be your reason either. I really don't. Last thing is self-talk. You get to talk yourself out of stuff. Now, you've heard me talk about my little, visualization with the cable car. You can do that. You can talk yourself down. So in a stressful situation or an emotional situation, I will say to myself internally, how do I want to respond here? How do I want this to play out? How do I want this other person to feel? If I'm in an emotional conversation, I want it to be a win-win. I want them to feel heard, because I hate it when I don't feel heard. Treat other people how you want to be treated. If they can't hear, if you're not being heard and you know how that feels, then make sure you hear other people, and you have to go first. When we commit to a life of growth and expansion and understanding and empathy and compassion for other human beings, we have to go first, because we have to teach people how to treat us. We have to be the example to our friends, to our children, of how different it can be. And that sometimes can feel a bit weird and a bit lonely and a bit I don't think that way anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I'm not going to express myself like that anymore. And people can feel weird about it, because it's you've changed, but you've got to stick with it, because ultimately it's your life. It's your life. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to say on that is, when you know how your best self wants to think and feel, we have to practice. We have to put into action how we have to think the thoughts that we want to think, the thoughts we want to think. It's a good sentence. We have to plan it. We have to think, okay, this is what normally trips me up. These are the things that normally trigger this argument, because I guarantee if you're in a relationship, I bet there's 2 things that you always row about, and I bet those 2 things are triggered by the same thing. And if you think about it, it's just a loop. It's just a negative loop, and someone has to break it. And when you decide to break it, you've got to go first. If you're the one that's recognized the loop, that is aware of what the pattern is. So I literally started saying to Mark, I was like, babe, can I just make an observation? Like, look what we just did. Like, you did that. I made it mean this. I responded to that. Then you respond. Like, there's a brilliant book I've just finished called Hold Me Tight. And it's a book about relationships by Dr. Sue Johnson, I think. And she talks about how adult love is about attachment. It's the same attachment theory as between a child and a parent. And underneath it all, we just want to know that that person's going to be there for us, right? Like, underneath it all. And she talks about this, she calls it the demon dialogues. And it's like making the loop the enemy, not each other. And I think that's really powerful. And that comes down to communication. It comes to allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. It comes to allowing ourselves to be able to be brave enough to say, this is how I feel, without making it about the other person and blaming them, without pointing the finger. It's like, this is how this is making me feel. Do you hear me? So we're going to be talking a lot about communication, how we do that, how we be vulnerable. And the only real way is practice. We have to show up and commit to it. And we just have to not just sit back and hope that our best self shows up, because it doesn't. When emotion, like my coach says this, Melanie, I've heard it said before, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. So emotional intelligence is about learning to ride with, to move with and through your emotions in a way that you'd be proud of, ultimately. So that's it. I'm done. Look at that. Bang on. Go me. So if you want to, you always have to be progressing, even slowly. Yes, Emma. I've always been led to believe managing emotions means make them go away. I'm learning this isn't the case. No, it's letting them move through. So it's not making them go away. So it's managing is maybe not the best word. It's owning them, feeling them, letting them go, learning to express them, not repressing them. God, repressed emotion is just the worst. Can't say that. Missing anything. Okay, so I'm going to leave you there. And then part 2 tomorrow, we're going to be talking about energetics, spiritual connection. Now, we're not talking about anything religious here. Just let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with religion. Whatever you believe in, I believe you believe it. I have my own beliefs. We all have our own beliefs. What I'm talking about is the connection to just something bigger than us. Because let me tell you, if you can connect to the belief that there is some, whether you call it the universe, God, whatever you call it, the thought that we're not doing this on our own is a very comforting one. So I want to talk about how we connect to that, how we use our energy in a situation. And it's more about energetics, like the physical energy we give off as a human. Do people want to be around us? Do we attract people or repel them? Like, so how we use our energetics in our relationships, in our business, just in life in general. Like, energy is everything. And this is science. Like, this isn't just me, woo-woo stuff. This is actual science. I read a brilliant book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's about quantum physics and real science about the energy of a human. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to be talking about our connection to self as a woman, connection to our desires, our pleasure, putting ourselves first, self-love, the importance of that. And trust me, when you have awareness in these 4 areas, you are consistently working on them and you are practicing the action of each area imperfectly, because no one's perfect, you will start to see life change. You will start to see improvement in your relationships, your income, your business, your everything, because it can't not. Because what we get back what we give out. And if we're giving out that energy, then we're going to get that energy back. Oh, that was good. So if you want to watch the second session, then you've got to be in my group. I'll repeat it again. You must answer the questions. So you just click on the link, the Ever Evolving Woman link. If you click on that, there are 2 very simple questions. Answer the questions. I'll add you into the group and I'll be going live in there at 8:30 tomorrow, same time, different place. I'll also be sharing some of my personal story that gives you some real life examples of how this has changed. I had a very, very incredible full circle life moment where I literally physically felt the shift in how I felt about myself with one realization. And so I want to share that with you tomorrow night. So if you're in there already, I'll see you there. If you're not in there already, then I'll be adding you. And then the link to, if you're interested in the All Woman program, you can either inbox me for the link, or I will be posting it tomorrow in the private group. I won't be posting it on my personal page because Facebook don't like it, but I'll put it in the group. And then any questions you've got, feel free to reach out to me in inbox, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Thank you very much for being here. I love you. Mwah.